Beth and I were married for nearly 18 years before our breakup. We were high school sweethearts and married shortly after graduation. At the time, we had no other lovers but each other. There is something to be said about that. It is really a good thing. Love outweighs just sex any day of the week. Of course, you don't really realize it till it's too late. We led, I guess what you might call, a good life. We had 4 kids together: Amy, Brad, Carla, and Daryl. We called them the alphabet kids. After Daryl was born, I had a vasectomy. I didn't want the whole alphabet. What happened? What went wrong? We seemed to be a happy family. We were good parents and supported everything our kids did. We were like most young couples struggling to make ends meet. I worked in a manufacturing plant, and Beth started working at the local Walmart store. Once the 2 older kids started school, the younger kids started in daycare when one of us wasn't home to watch them. It wasn't the greatest thing to do, but in today's society, that's how it goes. Our love life started off great, like probably most young people. We did it all the time, day or night. As the kids were born, we did it less and less. It's probably that way with most families. We just didn't have the time, or so we thought. Looking back, the problem was us. We started taking each other for granted. Our love life became a hurry up and do it. We reached our climaxes, but it was nothing like the days of old, the sweet and I love you so much type of sex. In a sense, I guess it became boring, but only because we didn't put the love in it where it belonged. I eventually got a promotion to supervisor. Our financial situation became much better. As the kids became older, we were able to go out once in a while. Dinner and a movie were enjoyable. It started to put a little of the luster back into our somewhat boring relationship. I guess all marriages go through it. You love each other, but take each other for granted. Beth came home one day and said she wanted to go out with the other girls at work. I didn't see any problem with that, since our kids were now old enough to take care of themselves. This happened about 5 years ago. She got dressed in slacks and a blouse. She was like a lot of women, always worried about her weight, but she always seemed to look nice at any weight. When she got home, I asked her if she had a nice time. She told me she did, and about some of the other girls. I have nothing against Walmart, but a lot of the women that worked there were divorced and separated. It didn't seem like the type of people that Beth should be partying with. I told her so, and she got mad at me for downgrading her friends. I told her I did no such thing. It's just that these women will look for men, and she'll be there with them. She looked at me a little sheepish. We were together for 18 years. I knew all her moods. I knew I hit a nerve. I asked if she danced with any men. She delayed in answering me, but then said she didn't do anything wrong, and yes, she danced with a couple of guys. And that was all I knew. A little more happened, but I didn't push the issue right then. She told me that she and her friends were going to go out once a month. I wasn't really happy with it, but what could I really say? I would have to just wait and see. The subsequent months, it continued like that until one day when she wore a skirt with pantyhose. I watched her get dressed. She didn't say much to me. I told her that I would be waiting up for her. It was past midnight when she came in. She looked at me and started to go to the room to change. As she started toward the bedroom, I asked her, "When you left, you had pantyhose on. Where are they?" "It was hot and I took them off," was all she said. I told her that this was starting to get out of hand and that we needed to talk about it, but she asked me to leave the room so she could undress. I told her that she had undressed in front of me for 18 years and wanted to know what was so special about that night. I walked up to her and grabbed her by the arm. It was something I had never done. "Please don't, Jerry. I beg you. Please don't." She knew what I was about to do as I reached under her skirt and found her pantyless. She started crying as I pushed her away. There my suspicion was confirmed. "Well, I guess that answers why no pantyhose, doesn't it?" I remarked. Her response was, "I'm sorry, Jerry. It just happened. I was drinking at this party, and Joe kept telling me how beautiful I was, and then he kissed me and began touching me. I've never been with anyone, Jerry." The girls kept telling me how good Joe is, and I let it happen. I was disappointed, and the only thing I could say was, "Doesn't our marriage mean anything to you? Didn't you at least think about me or the kids?" She continued crying, saying it wasn't love like me and her have, that it was raw sex and she doesn't want to lose me. I just stood there shaking my head in disbelief. I needed to think. My mind was going in 100 different directions. I told her I didn't want to talk anymore right then. My mind didn't comprehend what just happened. I told her we could talk the next day. I'd sleep on the couch that night. In the morning after the kids left, I got dressed and went to work. She was still sleeping from her hard night. I couldn't keep my mind on my job and took the afternoon off. I could have called, but I decided not to. So I went to where she was working and walked up to her. She was a cashier that day, and at the next register was her friend Barb, whom she'd always talked about. I had read the name on her name tag. She asked why I wasn't at work. I told her I was going to see our lawyer today, that I was getting a divorce. I turned around and walked out. Behind me, I heard her yelling at me to wait. She had a customer at the register and wasn't sure what to do. I guess she was in panic mode. I didn't wait as I walked briskly out the door and got in my truck and left. I went straight to the house and packed most of my clothing. I threw it all into boxes and put it in the truck. I had no idea where I was going, but I knew where I didn't want to be. I did leave a note for my kids. I told them that their mother and I were getting a divorce and she could explain it to them. I really would like to know how she was going to explain this one, probably make it my fault. She was good at blaming me for most things. I ended up going to my parents' house. They were in their 60s and had been married over 40 years. I told them that Beth and I were separating and would probably get divorced. I know it hurt them because they really liked her, and this was probably a shock. I told them I needed a place to stay, and they offered me the whole basement. It was all remodeled and had a nice bedroom and even a small kitchenette and living room set up down there. They told me I could stay as long as I needed. They didn't use the basement much anymore. About 2 years ago, they moved the washer and dryer upstairs after Mom's hip replacement. I told Mom and Dad that Beth wanted more freedom. It was kind of hard to explain that she wanted to sleep with other people. I didn't want to tell my parents that. I just told them that we felt differently about a number of things and didn't think we could come to an agreement. They weren't happy with that explanation, but that was all I could tell them for now. I did make it over to our lawyer, Jeff, and he told me that Beth had already called twice. I asked him if he was going to represent me or her. He said she doesn't want a divorce and she thinks we could work it out. I asked him again to answer my question, "Are you her lawyer or mine?" He said he's hers since she called him first, and he accepted the case. He advised we both talk with each other since we are both his friends, and he hates seeing us both in divorce court. I asked if she mentioned why I wanted a divorce. He said she told him we both had an argument about her going out. She got drunk and cheated on me. I explained to him how she went out after I told her I had a bad feeling about it. I then thanked him and told him I would hire someone else, and I'll reach out as soon as we get a plan together. I turned around and walked out. Martha was the best divorce lawyer in the state. She was as hard-nosed as they come. I knew a few men who went against her, and they were all taken to the cleaners. I contacted her and was given an appointment for the next day. She told me not to talk to Beth until we had our meeting. I asked her about the kids, and she told me to have my parents call them and tell them we would talk in the next couple of days. My parents did call the kids and talk to Amy, our oldest. They told Amy that I would call them and talk to them in the next few days. They mentioned that if any of the kids had an emergency to call them also, that I would be staying at their house. About 2 hours later, Beth called the house. She told my dad she needed to talk to me. I shook my head no, and my dad said that my lawyer said not to talk to her that day. I would call her after meeting with my lawyer. I heard my dad say to Beth, "I don't know what happened between you two, but you must have hurt Jerry terribly. I've never seen him like this." He talked a little more and hung up the phone. He looked over at me and said, "Beth told me to tell you she loves you and not to do this to your family." I was pissed. I knew she was going to throw it in my lap, make it my fault. My mom was out of the room, so I told my dad the truth. I told him not to tell Mom because it would crush her. She loved Beth. He had tears in his eyes when he left the room. My dad was a pretty sentimental guy. I did go to work the next day. I wasn't allowed to accept personal calls in the plant except for emergencies. I told my manager about applying for a divorce and to make sure no calls were forwarded from Beth as emergencies. I was glad to be working. It kept my mind focused on something else other than her. I met with Martha after work. She asked what I wanted to happen. I told her I wasn't really sure. I love Beth, and I don't want to destroy her or anything like that. I just can't live with the lifestyle she wants. I'm not into sharing her, and I'm not interested in having sex with just anybody. I am somewhat worried about the kids. I know they're older, but I don't want her bringing every Tom, Dick, and Harry to the house, although I don't think she would do such a thing, but I didn't think she would cheat on me either. Martha replied, "People go through this every day. We can do whatever you want. I take it you don't want the affair situation publicly known for the sake of the kids. You need to support them, and we can pretty much dictate the amount. You can give or take whatever you want. You're in the driver's seat here. We might have to use the affair as a weapon to get things settled, but we'll go for irreconcilable differences in the end. Is that all right with you?" "You're my lawyer. I'll follow your advice," I replied. She continued, "You make a pretty hefty salary. Since she is working, we probably can get away with $500 a week in child support. And as the kids turn 18, knock off about $50 a week. No spousal support, and when all the kids are over 18, the money stops. You'll also be responsible for their medical. As far as higher education, it's up to you if you want to supply any. You don't have to legally. Your oldest is 17 and your youngest is 12, so you will have to pay some support for the next 6 years. Do you want to go with this, or do you want something else?" I asked, "What about our savings and my retirement package?" She answered, "All the savings will be divided equally, as well as any bills that are in both of your names. You have 2 vehicles, so you can each have one. Your retirement is exactly that, your retirement. We won't let her touch that. The house and furnishings are the only things left. What would you like done with them?" I said, "Our house was worth about $200,000, and we owe about $60,000, but my kids live there. I'm not sure what to do." She suggested that I let her have the house to live in until the children are all grown and out of the house, say age 21, for an example. At that time, the house will be sold, and the money divided equally, or one of the 2 parties can buy the house at half the worth, minus what's owed on it. She will be responsible for half the house payment. I agreed with her suggestion. Then I asked, "What if either Beth or Jeff want to fight it?" Her response was, "Then we pull out the big guns and bring up the cheating. I'm pretty sure they don't want that. If they do, then we'll ask for custody and a 50-50 split of everything, and of course no support since she won't have the kids." I took the next day off, and Martha called Jeff and told him that she had an offer for him and Beth and asked if they could be at her office at noon. Of course, he agreed to it. Jeff and Beth showed up at the same time. I figured Jeff told her to wait for him, in the parking lot or something. There we were at the table, Martha and me on one side, and Jeff and Beth on the other. Jeff spoke first. He knew Martha and wasn't happy about being on the opposite side. "Nice to see you again, Martha. I know how you operate, and like to get down to business before you make us an offer. Beth would like to talk privately with Jerry." I said no. She did her talking the other night. I will talk to her only after the papers are signed. Everyone here is aware of why I'm asking for the divorce. I looked directly at Beth. "If you're afraid of having your love life being exposed, please listen to my offer. I think it is most generous," Martha said. "Well, that question was answered. Jerry has made you a very fair offer. He will use irreconcilable differences for the reason of separation. As you can see, he has given you a decent income while your children are living at home. The only debatable issue here is the house. I think he has been very fair in his offer here also." She handed a copy to Beth and one to Jeff. Jeff spoke again. "We need time to look over this document and see about a possible counteroffer. I will talk with Beth and get back to you in the next couple of days." Martha responded, "Just so we are clear on the issue, there will be no counteroffer. If you turn this offer down, which I believe would be very ill-advised, My client will file under adultery and ask for custody of the kids and the house." Beth looked up and was crying. Martha was playing hardball, and it hurt me to see Beth cry. She grabbed a pen and asked where to sign without even reading it. She was crying full-fledged tears. Then she was afraid of losing her kids. Martha replied, "Ma'am, please calm down. Jerry doesn't want to hurt you or the kids. Please take a day or so, as Jeff has suggested, and see if everything is agreeable. Maybe we have overlooked something." I'm sorry about my threatening tone, but I wanted to make it clear that we are offering a very good settlement here. Jerry is seeing to it that you and your kids are well taken care of, so please take the document and discuss it with your lawyer, and Jeff and I will discuss it, say, tomorrow. Beth looked at me while her crying lessened. "Jerry, I do love you no matter what you think. I was just hoping that we could put some time between us and maybe get back together. But I see that you have already made your decision." "No, Beth, you made my decision for me. You want the freedom to do as you please, and I'm giving it to you. The only thing I ask is that you keep your lovers away from my kids, or I'll take them from you. That's a promise." She started crying again as she hurried out of the building. Jeff said goodbye to us and told Martha he would probably see her the next day. Martha looked at me and told me it looked like I would win this case. I told her there are no winners, only losers. I lost the only woman I ever loved, and my kids now live in a single-parent home. No, we didn't win. We just got a fair agreement. My daughter Amy drove the two youngest over to my parents to see me. I was happy to see them. They kept asking questions, and I kept telling them that their mom and I weren't getting along, and we didn't see eye to eye on some major issues, and we would be getting divorced. I tried to explain to them that their mother and I would always be in their lives. We just wouldn't be together. I hugged and kissed them all as they told me how much they loved me. I told them they could always call me or Grandma's house. Brad showed up a little later. "Dad, I have a question for you. Did you cheat on Mom?" "No, Brad. I would never cheat on your mother." "Why would you ask me that?" "Well, Jim and Charvis, my buddies at school, said their parents are divorced, and in both cases, their dad was caught cheating on their mom. I was hoping you didn't do something like that. God, I love you, Dad, and I'm gonna miss you." "Brad, you won't be missing me. I'm not leaving the country. I'll always be here for all you kids. It will just take some time getting used to our situation." Well, the divorce was finalized, and I kept my promise to the kids. I went to most of their school functions. I saw Beth at most of them. She was a good mom, and if she was having any affairs, she was keeping it very private. I might mention here that Beth and I were always on speaking terms. We got together for the kids' birthdays and other special occasions. The only agreement we had was she wasn't to mention her dating life to me. We talked about the kids, holidays, my parents. No topic was off limits but her love life. A couple of times, she started to say something about a male friend or something along those lines, and I would get up and leave. The agreement that Martha and I wrote up was all signed. I wasn't there when Beth came in to sign it. Martha told me Beth took it pretty hard. We had a few arguments with Jeff on what credit cards would be paid and by whom. I guess that was his way of eating face. I told Martha that if push came to shove, I would pay them. We canceled all our credit cards and had new ones issued in separate names. I talked with the kids regularly. They told me that their mom accepted the fact that we were divorced and seemed a little happier. I asked them if she dated, and they told me no. She did go out with girlfriends about once a month. I cringed when I heard that. I never explored the sexual realm either. I was happy with Beth. Going back a couple of years, I should mention that I did start dating again. I went out with a few women from work. At my age, most women I met and dated were divorced. I did have intimacy with a few of these ladies, but it just wasn't the same for me. I mean, it was good, and I treated them all with respect, but I always thought about Beth. It's funny how you can't just shake it off and go on with your life. I tried, believe me, I really tried. All the women I dated just didn't do it for me. My best days were the family events when I could see Beth. One night I went out with the guys from work. They said they knew a noisy lounge where the women hung out. Of course, you know who I saw there. It must have been ladies' night out. I looked up, and there she sat. It was funny, though, because there weren't any men around them, yet I didn't know any of the women she was with. The only one I ever met from her work was Barb, and she wasn't there. I walked up to Beth from the side so she didn't see me coming. I asked, "Would you like to dance?" She asked. "Jerry, what are you doing here?" I replied. "Just out with the guys. Are you waiting for someone, or do you want to dance?" "No, I'm not waiting for anyone. And yes, I'd love to dance with you. Let me introduce you to my friends." She rattled off a half-dozen names and then said, "These women all belong to our card club. About once every 6 months, we go out instead of playing cards, and it just happens to be tonight. Now, how about that dance?" We went up to the dance floor, and we had 2 slow numbers in a row. Then the band started a fast one. I said, I never could dance to those types of songs. As I walked her back to her table, she seemed sad that I took her to the table. "Ladies, it was nice meeting you. I better get back to my friends." As I walked away, it just didn't seem right. I didn't want to see if she was approached by another man. I told my friends that I had to leave and would see them later. As I walked out the door, I turned and saw Beth staring at me. The next day, I got a call from her. She said it was nice to see me out and about and enjoyed being with me. She asked me if I would help plan Amy's wedding reception. My oldest daughter was going to get married. It seemed like just yesterday I held her in my arms. Now here she was, ready to start her life with her boyfriend. It's funny, Beth called the day after I had seen her. Since I knew Amy's wedding was about a year away, I told her I thought it was a bit early since it was so far away. She told me that reservations and such have to be made way in advance. I suggested she give Amy a call and make the plans with her. After all, it was her wedding. After they got their ideas on paper, I would look at the financial end. She said that was okay, and she would give Amy a call and get things started. I wanted Beth to know that one dance does not put us back together. I called her about a month later to ask her how the plans were coming along. Carla answered the phone and said that she had gone out with friends. I was aggravated, but really had no right to be. By this time, we've been divorced for over 3.5 years. I did ask Carla if her mom went out regularly, and she told me about once a month. In the subsequent months, all our free time was spent getting ready for Amy's wedding. I did have lunch with Beth, Amy, and my son Brad and Amy's fiancé Ben. We were headed over to be fitted for our tuxes. I hadn't worn one since our wedding almost 22 years ago, and I swear I looked like a penguin. But Amy and Beth both said I looked handsome. Time flew by so fast, and before I knew it, it was time for the wedding rehearsal. I went over to the church and did all the things I was asked to do. No big deal. As Amy and I walked down the aisle, I did some silly things like hopping and skipping. Nothing bad, just having a little fun. I remember the pastor saying that it would be different the following day. We might be nervous, so we should try to remember our parts. I thought, yeah, walk down the aisle and later say, "I do." Wow, I thought, who couldn't do that? The wedding day came, and everything went smoothly. Everyone had fun. I finally moved on with my life. I hurt for a while, but I was putting it all behind me. Did I love Beth? Of course I did, but her wrongdoing was unbearable. A while later, I met someone. She was a few years younger than me, beautiful, articulate, and funny. She told me she was divorced. She had 2 kids that were barely teenagers. When I asked her what caused her divorce, she said, "A cheating husband. He wanted the so-called good life, the include other people style. It wasn't for me. I'm a one-guy kind of woman. I also have to think what's best for my kids." I told him to go find a woman who thinks like that, but it wasn't me. We dated for about a year, and I asked her to marry me. She looked up at me and asked what the marriage vows meant to me. To love, honor, and obey till death do us part, richer or poorer, sickness and in health, to make love only to her and none other. I can do all that except the obey part. I laughed. We were married, and all my kids attended the wedding. At first, they were reluctant to attend. I had them come up before the wedding, and they met my future wife face to face. They saw the kind, gentle person that I saw. Of course, Amy was married already, Brad was planning to, and Carla was dating. Daryl and Carla were both still in college. They knew I needed someone in my life. Mom and Dad fell in love with my bride-to-be also. They drove up for the wedding. They knew my life was back on track. My wife looked beautiful as hell. Why any man would want to share her was beyond me. We went on a short honeymoon and stopped by Mom and Dad's on the way back. I showed my new wife the town I was from and the house I used to live in. We headed back home and began our new life. It was a simple life, but we were happy with it. We did enjoy it to the fullest, and our lovemaking was terrific. I don't know what Beth is doing anymore. The kids see her and say she lives alone. They said she seems to be doing okay as far as dating goes. They think she does, but doesn't really talk about it. Of course, they love their mom and do watch after her. She'll be all right, they said. I just hope she also finds happiness. I guess I'll never know. Thanks for listening. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel to listen to more stories like this. Take care.